Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video is all about 10 tips, practices that I use when I'm out creating photos to try and create more interesting photos. Before we get into the tips, the practices, let me give you a disclaimer. These are not things you will do in 30 seconds. Here's why. There's no easy button on here. There's no create an interesting photo setting on your camera. So these are practices and tips that will help you take the time, develop habits, see things differently. It's not just a one and done. These are things that you'll have to do over and over again to help you create more interesting photos. So this is all about investing time in the craft of photography, investing time in the learning of this art form, in developing yourself as an artist so that you can create the most interesting photos that you can. I use the phrase interesting photos rather than better photos because to me, it's a framework that allows for conversation that is both has an objective element to it and a subjective opinion element to it. If you want to learn more about that framework and philosophy, I will post a link to a video. No, it's up here, a video up here about that, the interesting photo framework, I guess I'll call it. So let's get into the list. Number one on the list of 10 items is to pay attention to what you pay attention to. One way to do this is to look through your library of photos and see if there's recurring subject themes, if there's recurring time of day themes, if there's recurring location themes, and then pursue that more deeply. If there's things you are creating photos of on a regular basis, it's probably because you enjoy that subject, that location, that atmosphere. So as they say, lean into that. Get deeper into that. Use your joy of that, your enjoyment of it, to go even further than what you've gone before. And by the same token, I guess the flip side of that is if you don't like something, don't spend energy necessarily trying to create more interesting photos of it. The reason for that is our engagement, our joy of the subject tends to show up in our photos. If we don't enjoy what we're creating photos of, then that tends to show up. It's just not quite the same amount of that special something that makes a photo very, very interesting. Number two habit or tip I'm going to suggest, practice, is one of three about time. And this one is take your time, part one. And here's what I mean by this. So before you even go out and create some photos, think about what you want to do. Think about where you're going to go, when you're going to go, and if those line up to create hopefully interesting photo creating opportunities. Middle of the day, if you're doing landscape photography, is probably not the most interesting time because the light is tends to be ordinary. So you might think more about sunrise, sunset, or look for other atmospheres. But plan it. Be intentional. Schedule a time for creating photos. Make a photo date with yourself to go create photos. Create a schedule. Put it on the calendar. Set a reminder on your phone, whatever you need, but be intentional to say, this is a time I will go create photos. And the reason for this tip and practice is if I just say, well, I'll go take photos when I feel like it, I often don't feel like it. The call of the couch, it's so powerful. Whatever is on TV. So if you plan it, make a date for yourself to go create photos. Tell someone else you're going to create photos so you got a little accountability. That's a great way to take your time to create some photos. Number three, which is take your time, part two. So this one about taking your time is for each time you go out to create photos, create enough time to get into it. Just like exercise, or at least I've been told this is how exercise works, you warm up first. You stretch. You you get ready to do the thing you came to do. So your first few minutes of photography may be stretching. They're warm-ups. So if your first few photos you create aren't making you sing and dance and leap for joy, realize that those photos might be just the ones to get you started. They're the warm-ups. So be intentional about planning to have some extra time. So maybe it's more than 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, it's an hour where you are going to dig in, stretch out, and keep going. Push beyond that, oh, I can't find any more photos. Keep going. Oftentimes when students ask me how many photos they need to take for an assignment, I'll say all of them and one more. So when you think you're done, find one more photo. If you're not happy with the photos you've created so far, look for one more, and then hopefully that'll be the one that gets you going to the next level. So tip number 4, habit number 4, practice number 4, whatever you want to call these, investment of time opportunity number 4 is part 3 of Take Your Time. And this one is about coming back to a location over and over again. When you go create photos at a location, whatever it may be, whatever you're creating photos of, and the light wasn't working for you that day, the atmosphere wasn't working for that day, the colors weren't happening, come back another time. Many landscape photographers, when asked, how come you have these great photos, they'll say, because I came back 20 times. I had to come back in the fall, I had to come back in the summer, I had to come back at sunrise, sunset. So, and related to this is don't just think of, oh, I should come at sunrise or sunset. There's other ways to get atmosphere. Think of winter with snow if your region has that. Think of summer with its different look, and fall, obviously. Think of mist and fog. Think of rain. Or right before a storm, right after a storm. There's lots of different ways that light and atmosphere can change, plus seasons, that will give you opportunities to come back multiple times to the potentially same location. Practice number 5 I'm going to suggest, and this is one I use quite often, is to change your perspective. We tend to get stuck in the groove of our normal standing height, and that's where we see the world from. So we see the world at this level. And we forget that there's a lot of stuff going down below us, a lot of stuff happening above us. So change your perspective, change your eye level. Get down lower is the easier one because that's how gravity works. But it's amazing especially if you have a camera with a tilty screen, if you could tilt the screen down and you can look up, hold the camera up high, that makes a really big difference. Or if you're truly adventurous, carry a 10-foot stepladder with you everywhere you go. Or a drone, I guess. But yeah, changing that perspective is really a powerful way to get beyond the ordinary. The things that most people already are looking at, the things you normally see, down lower, taller, closer, change that perspective. Even just simply turning around is pretty powerful. If you're looking at this thing, what does it look like back there? And see what that looks like. Practice number 6. Number 6, I guess I've been doing them over here. Number 6 is to set limits. So one of the scariest things when any of us go to create something is that blank page, the open-ended, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go do something. So if you can, as part of your taking time number 1 and setting a plan, set some limits for yourself. These are totally up to you. Think of them as assignments, maybe. Maybe you're going to create photos all day with one lens, at one focal length if you have a zoom lens. Maybe you're going to take pictures of things only that are below your waist at normal standing height or above your shoulders. So think of those limits as ways to create a starting point, as a ways to spark creativity, a way to get out of, well, I'm going to take a picture of whatever and end up taking and creating photos that you don't really love because they were uninspired. If you ever want a list of limits, some idea suggestions for assignments, feel free to write me a comment down below, hit my website, send me an email. I have 11 plus years of photography assignments I'm glad to share with you, plus ones I've done on my own. So it's a lot of fun. Giving that framework is a pretty awesome way to get you started, to get the creative thought processes going as you're doing habit and practice number 2, which is the setting a schedule to go do this. Which side are we on? We're on number 7 over here. Number 7 of the practices and tips. This one is exactly opposite of what I just said. Well, this one is to be open. So we just talked about setting limits. This one is about being open. So even though you've set this limit, and maybe it's simply, hey, it's fall, it's autumn, so I'm going to go create photos in a woodland of amazing colors. That doesn't mean you don't notice like a little dead leaf on the ground that has amazing texture. Doesn't have the color, but it's got texture. Doesn't mean you don't notice the other things that are around you besides the colorful trees. So be open to what else the experience of being out and creating photos will bring across your path. Be aware of them, and just because it's not part of the assignment or the limit doesn't mean you can't create a photo of it. Be aware of it. I know those things are in tension. Be open and set limits. But welcome to the world of art. That's how it often works, is you got to hold things, complicated thoughts at the same time that seem to oppose each other. Number eight over here is to learn the technical so you have more tools to be creative. So for example, you need to understand the technical parts of exposure if you want that waterfall that looks like cotton candy. You do that with shutter speed. So you need to know how to set your shutter speed and to what shutter speed value will get you the look you want. Similarly, if you want to control what's in focus in your photo, either a blurry background or everything in focus, that's with aperture. You may want to change the color in your photo, so that's white balance. Knowing the technical side of photography gives you more crayon colors in your crayon box to color with. So you have more capability to create the thing you're envisioning in your mind. So learn those technical things. It's not going to be done in 30 seconds. You're going to have to probably watch some videos, read some books, look at some websites, practice with your camera then to understand how all those technical things work to get to the kind of creative photo you want to make. Number nine over here is to read. One way to create more interesting art is to become a more interesting person. The books I'm currently going to be reading are The Art of Noticing, about creativity and just seeing things. I love stuff like that. And then Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. So there's probably some things I don't know yet about creating interesting photos. So read for fun. Read about things you enjoy. Read about things you know nothing about. Read about lots of things. And reading, one of the great things about reading is you can imagine while you're reading. So it's not, television and movies and visual arts are awesome because they engage different parts of your brain, but reading really brings your imagination into it. And in doing that, it helps you create your own experience around the subject, which then you can bring into the other things you're creating. So read. It's just a really good thing. It helps you, just like learning the technical side of photography gives you more tools to create with, having more experiences, learning more about the world around you, what other people are talking about, thinking about, creating, helps you have more tools in your toolbox for creating. And then last but not least, number 10. Number 10 habit, practice, tip for creating more interesting photos is to have fun. To have an attitude of play, have an attitude of expectation that you can't wait to see what you're going to come up with. That if someone asks you what you're doing, I'm taking photos, yeah, probably not the best place to start. But if someone asks you, what are you doing? And you say, I'm going out and creating photos. There's a difference in that attitude that leads to that, I hope, for want of a better word, that leads to excitement, that leads to engagement. So one of the awesome possible outcomes of being playful in your approach and having fun to creating photos is it leads to an expectation of possibilities rather than limits. Just like when you're 5 years old and someone asks you if you can do something, you're probably going to say yes. As we've gotten older, we say, no, I can't do that because I can't, or I don't want to, or I haven't been able to do it the way I want. Creating photos is art. Creating photos is so personal. So if you approach it from a place of expectation and hope, and can't wait to see what you're going to come up with, that just only can potentially lead to good things. And the other upside to that playful expectation attitude is even if you don't create any photos you share with anybody, you've still had the experience. It's still been learning, and now you know some more things and had some experiences that you didn't have before. And if nothing else, you got off the couch or out of the office. So that's always a good thing. So there you have it. 10 ideas, 10 tips, 10 practices that I find personally helpful when I'm out creating photos, when I'm thinking about what photos I want to go create. If you have some comments, suggestions, your own habits or practices you found so helpful to you in creating photos, I would love if you'd share them below. There's always something to learn from each other. Also, if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button, help train the YouTube algorithm about videos you find most helpful. And last but not least, by YouTube law, I'm required to ask you to subscribe to this channel. You know I'm kidding about the law part, right? Okay. But do please subscribe to this channel. You'll get to see more stuff like this. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. So until we meet again, please go have fun creating photos. Go create lots of photos out there. And until we meet again, bye for now.